Hello, welcome to our discussion on Indigenous Hands, the Indigenous Voices, which is brought to you by Save the Deaf and Endangered Languages Initiative. Gestures are an integral part of the signing, just like gestures are an integral part of the speech. I am a speaker of a language. When I speak, I use gesture, I use my body, I use every part of me that I unconsciously feel is part of is supposed to make meaning in the expression I'm making unconsciously. That's so important to know. That you do this unconsciously, subconsciously. As a speaker of a language. So this is a role that gestures, seem to play in our daily expressions. Okay, another thing I wanted us to discuss in this topic is the relationship between gestures and hand signs. Sometimes I have seen people try to discuss or explain gestures. They end up talking about hand signs. It is a little bit complicating. I was talking with a person that was I was exchanging emails, a person that is doing a project on trying to produce this hand signs of deaf people in particular or in various communities. And I kept asking him, why do you want to produce in hand signs of deaf signers? Why is it necessary, instead of producing your project on the sign language of the deaf signers? Because that's what it is supposed to be. And that email exchange, I try to understand the reason for using hand signs. And in my understanding, I found out that he didn't quite understand why my question. But looking at the definition of gestures and what they mean and what they stand for in the languages that we use, they are not necessarily hand signs. Rather, hand signs are part of gestures from every understanding of it. Hand signs are sometimes referred to as conventional gestures. And these conventional gestures, they stand alone. They may or may not accompany speech, and they are culturally and sometimes universally known. For instance, when I make my hand like this, I may not speak, and most of the times we do hands like this without speaking. And as I do this, I mean, an average language user knows what I mean. This is thumbs up. And I would say that this is an internationally used, if not globally used, sign. It's not a sign language. It is a gesture, but it is a particular type of gesture which is called conventional sign. This conventional sign, another word for it is hand sign, and it is used not primarily with speech. If I make my hand like this and still say good, it is redundant. It is like repetition. You know, it is enough to say this. And an average language user of English and many other languages, this is thumbs up. It could mean a different thing in another culture, but if the person who is represented in that culture is also a language user, sees this expression, he or she understands that this is thumbs up, this is you've done well, this is great, good, is fine. The opposite of this is this. I don't need to say bad, 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 no, wrong, wrong while I'm doing this. I do this. And an average language user knows that I am saying no, not acceptable, not good. Okay? So these are called hand signs. And some people, I think also in English culture or something, you can use this to stop, 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 even though this means something else in another language. These are hand signs, and you know that our hand signs these days are seen in all the gadgets we're using, the smartphones. They're called emojis. So all the expressions in emojis, when you press your phone and send an emoji to someone, um, that person is believed to understand you. You don't need to send an emoji and still type what you mean. That is like you don't have job, you know. So, so that is an example of hand sign, which is called a conventional gesture. They do not co-occur with speech. They do not accompany speech. So this is not the kind of gesture that we talk about that co-occur with speech or sign, even though a speech user, a signer can use hand sign or can use conventional gesture in between, intermittently, you know, during expression. But just know that whenever you use a hand sign, you are using what is called a standalone gesture or a standalone sign. So, in our study of gestures of indigenous or gestures in indigenous sign languages, we ran into a study done by a scholar called Orie in 2013 who studied an indigenous sign language used in the southwest of Nigeria, which you could generally call a Yoruba sign language. And Orie looked at how a signing system is developing from gestural expressions. And he did a very wonderful work in looking at how this sign language is becoming a full-fledged language, becoming a developed language through gestures. So he showed, find out that the signing system of this sign language is expressed through the numerals, how the people count in the gestural stage, and how the users of the language count in the signing stage. So always showed the numerals from 1 to 10 up to 20 signed in the gestural form, and the same signing in the sign language form right now. You will see a gradual, shift from the gestural signing to the sign language system. The difference between these two signing systems, these two numerals system, is one of the differences is the speakers and signers in that community, they are familiar with the gestural numerals, but the signing numerals is shifting amongst the deaf, whereby the deaf can use the gestural numeral possibly when they are communicating with non-signing hearing people, and at the same time use their own signing numerals when they are communicating amongst themselves. And I'm sure you can see this picture and cast your mind on what is the difference between this signing system and this other one, the difference between the numeral system and the one that represents the signing system. So this is a very strong example of the difference that gesture makes, or the function of gesture in our sign language, indigenous sign language system. So it is a correct statement to say that there is a large amount of gesture found in indigenous sign languages that we are very sure of, some of which is being demonstrated here today. It is also a correct statement to say that there is gesture in both speech and signing, and that is one attribute of signing that is that makes it to be very rich, even though spoken languages also use gestures. But the importance of gestures in signing, we found out that those, especially those that sign English, um, may not always use gestures because of the signing system is all about trying to render the spoken English into signed form, so but this is not what we're concerned about. We're concerned about how gestures are found in the indigenous signing systems and the roles they play, and how can we harness the benefits or the functions of gestures in our indigenous signing systems today. All right. We hope to continue this topic later on, maybe in the nearer future, and we are going to explore these numerous that Ori studied and the ones that we collected from Morgan Jingari deaf community. And so today, I appreciate you for hanging out with us and listening to some of these abstract things that we discuss here. So, and I am glad to always uh, be here every week to do this. So I want to say to you all that have been supporting us in diverse ways, stay strong and let's continue to learn together, because knowledge is power. And now I will be glad to see you again next week. Bye.